It was a stroke of budgetarily imposed genius to invent the personnel transporter on Star Trek. It saved time and money moving characters from the starship Enterprise down to the surface of whatever planet our heroes were visiting that week. But shuttlecraft were not entirely neglected. The Enterprise came with a hangar deck and shuttles, the best known of which was the Galileo 7. Yet, there is a question around the hangar deck. Indeed, there are several. In this video, we will ask the question, was the hangar deck as seen in the television series too big? It was supposedly written into the writer's Bible for Star Trek that the hangar deck was the size of a football field. Assuming the writers were referring to an American football field rather than a proper football field, then we are looking at a floor space of 300 feet by 160 feet. These are the dimensions meant by anyone calling something the size of a football field. Although any honest measurement of an American football field should include the end zones for a total length of 360 feet. Based on best estimates, the secondary hull of the Enterprise was about 88 feet in diameter at its widest point, and it tapered to around 62 feet at the stern. For the hangar deck to fit, its dimensions must be smaller. There is no way the hangar deck is the size of a football field. I have calculated that the distance from the engine pylons to the fantail is something like 85 feet. This being the case, the hangar deck cannot be any longer than this distance. Yet interior shots make it seem at least 123 feet in length. If this is correct, then the pylons reach the hangar deck and not main engineering. Even if the power conduits run around the hangar deck complex, this still leaves us with structural issues. There should be internal support for the pylons, but there isn't space. We might suppose that the hull itself is strong enough to carry the weight of the engines. And whilst we are talking of 23rd century technology and materials, this is not very satisfactory. We might also suppose that, as a starship built for gravity-free outer space, the Enterprise's engine nacelles theoretically do not have any weight. But there is the evidence of tomorrow is yesterday, in which the Enterprise entered Earth's atmosphere and flew through the sky. The structural stress should have broken the ship apart, but it did not. If the hangar deck was as large as our dimensions make it, then where was the extra pylon support? And how did the power conduits reach the engines? We might be able to solve the hangar deck size problem if we know the size of the shuttlecraft contained within. In a previous video, I illustrated the size of a Soviet-era Alpha-class attack submarine by putting a shuttle next to it. I said the shuttle was 21 feet in length. However, the shuttle interior shown in the Galileo 7 is larger than even that. Perhaps the shuttles are larger on the inside than they are on the outside, rather like a certain other iconic vehicle of science fiction. With the shuttle half turned on its turntable, there seems to be around 20 feet of clearance either side between it and the port and starboard walls. So that makes the hangar deck at least 60 feet across where the turntable is located. If we add the depths of the alcoves, then we increase this width by about, say, 10 feet. So the hangar deck must be 70 feet across, wider than the 62 feet we have just calculated. And then we must factor in the door. We see the door in Journey to Babel. The door opened and there was the shuttle, having been turned on its turntable. But where was this door? If it was set into the forward bulkhead, then why couldn't we see the clamshell doors beyond the shuttle? Instead, we saw only a blank wall. A blank wall, moreover, that was close by the shuttle's starboard side, far too close to represent the clamshell doors. The evidence in the episode suggests a door set into the starboard side of the hangar deck. But was there space for both the door and the vestibule? If our measurements are even remotely correct, the answer is no. In the restored version of Star Trek, the team changed the hangar deck and made its measurements smaller, as seen here. The space for the shuttle is tighter, yet this presents another problem, as the hangar deck might now be too small. According to dialogue in the episode The Omega Glory, the USS Exeter carried 4 shuttles. As the Exeter was the sister ship of the Enterprise, we can suppose that the Enterprise also had 4 shuttles. But where were they stored? Was there space? A smaller hangar deck might allow 2 or even 3 shuttles, with one sitting on the turntable, ready to depart, but not 4. Was the turntable also a lift? Was there enough space under the flight deck itself? And if those large doors at the front of the hangar deck were garage doors for the other shuttles, where does that leave main engineering? It may well be the case that our dimensions for the hangar deck are wrong. Perhaps the hangar deck as seen in the series did indeed fit into the space provided by the external model. But if the 70-foot width and the 123-foot length are even remotely accurate, the answer to our question, was the hangar deck as seen in the television series too big, is a categorical yes.